Hey folks, this is Kate Sassoon, or Sassy, and I'm here with you today to help walk you through setting up safe space. When I say safe space, I'm talking about a specific tool. It's available on my website, sassycooperates.org, and for those of you following along from the blog post or from my tool library, this is the tool that I'll be talking about, so you can go ahead and download it, print it out, and then follow along at home. But I have the basic principles up here, and I'm going to walk you through setting up safe space today, just because it might help to see someone do it. So you and me are going to set up safe space right now, and let's go through those principles together. When would you want to set up safe space? Well, anytime you want to have a high-stakes conversation, or you might have a high-stakes conversation. So I have this tool set up with my coworkers, with clients of mine, boards of directors, working groups. I have it set up with my wife, with my mother. Ooh, did that help? Any situation where you might get real, you might want to have some ground rules for how to do that. And safe space is the ground rules that I've put together and that I use to make my life very productive and low on drama. So we're going to go through how to set that up today. First off, let's go through the principles. First off, we have equalize the space. What does that mean? Well, we break that down. Confidentiality is the first one. A space where you know the details and the content of your sharing isn't going to be shared outside that space is one into which you can share honestly. So we want to share lessons and outcomes, but not identifying details. That's the line between productive talk and gossiping. 2, challenge our practices. Everyone's learned their behaviors. That means we can unlearn behaviors that no longer serve us. So when we challenge each other, let's challenge our behaviors and our practices, not our innate personhood or our identities. That's not going to get us very far. So let's challenge our behaviors, not our persons. 3, make space, take space. If you're a person who, for example, likes to talk and feels pretty comfortable speaking their voice, try stepping back out of that space and see what happens. If you're a person who holds the wall a little bit, maybe doesn't speak up as much, try taking a risk and speaking up. Odds are you're voicing something not just for you, but for someone else in the room. So practice stepping out of your pattern. And lastly, equal worth. This one can be hard, but it means that your truth and my truth and everyone's truth in this conversation is equally worthy of being true. Doesn't mean they're all simultaneously true with a capital T, but my truth is just as worthy as your truth from our perspective, and we're going to honor that as we move forward together. So that's equalize the space, first principle. Second principle, check your assumptions. At the door, we do not need them. They are not helpful to us. What does that actually mean though? Well, first it means no judgments. Don't judge each other, pretty basic. It also means no self-judgments. Those of us who have been socialized or oppressed to be certain unvoiced kinds of ourselves can have a lot of trouble actually speaking up without disclaiming our knowledge. So if you say things like, I feel kind of stupid about this, or this may be a really dumb question, but you're just not only judging what's coming out of your mouth, you've normalized that judgment is something we do between ourselves. So don't judge each other and don't judge yourself. 2, everyone's an individual, not a representative of an entire group, right? I am Sassy and I have pink hair. The pink-haired agenda is not the core of my day. I'm not always going to vote and act according to the pink-haired homogenized thing. However, I am Sassy and I have pink hair. I am a representative of an identity and a person in my own self. I statements. Use I statements. The purpose of an I statement, which would be I feel X when you behave Y, is to own your knowledge, to personalize it and not project your knowledge or any knowing onto somebody else. That helps you really see where you're coming from and where someone else is coming from. So use your I statements and be careful of those you statements. And lastly, believe in our common best intentions. If we're sitting down and have a conversation, odds are we're not here to be a jerk. We're probably here to do something well together. So even when we differ and disagree, let's remember that we're all here to do something better. We have a common intention in best intent. So let's remember that. Now, principle 3, those first 2 principles, that's a lot of hippie kumbaya shit. Not always happens that we're our best self. We're not always at the top of our game. So how do we deal with that? Well, we acknowledge that we both have the right to be human. So we call that the right to be human. First off, we respect it. We give each other a little bit of social credit. If you come at me with maybe a little more energy than I sent at you, maybe you're having a bad day. I'll give you a little line of social credit with the expectation that when I'm having a human day, you'll give me that line back. So we float on a common sea of social credit that we agree to give each other because we get it. We're all human. Secondly, we acknowledge emotions appropriately. Is a board meeting where you're doing your finances the most appropriate space for a giant emotional conversation? Perhaps not. But emotions are inherent in every decision or human interactions we do, and we need to manage and acknowledge those. So acknowledge them. Make space for them appropriately. We honor our differences. We have a hell of a lot of homogeneities and a hell of a lot of diversities inherent in any interaction that we're going for. So we want to make sure that we always honor those differences, we never flatten them, and that we center them when it's appropriate to do so, to act in best interest and bestness to our interaction and our community. And fourth, we practice forgiveness. We practice being the bigger person and letting it go, because that is not only powerful for ourselves, but it's really, really powerful for what we're trying to do here together. The Dalai Lama says it's a great idea. He's smarter than me, and I'm going to go with it because it's a really, really powerful force multiplier to become the bigger person. So we practice forgiveness when possible. And then the last thing, principle 4, is the nuts and bolts of consensual dialogue. These is things like active listening. There's a lot of tutorials on how to build your active listening skills. It's about taking a risk, but always knowing that everyone has a right to pass. Like, take a risk, say that thing you're scared of, but never, never, never coerce someone into giving you an answer. A coerced answer is not a sincere answer, and that's bad data that we just don't need. We also want to make sure that silence is okay. That is saying that every one of us has a different kind of communication style. Some of us are really fast, some of us are slower, and every processing speed is fine. How do we do that, deal with that in a conversation where we may not know the other person's style? We mix it up. We let there be pauses. We sometimes go fast. We ask around. We try and change it up so that we hit a diversity of styles when we're communicating, and so we don't accidentally exclude someone because of their style. And lastly, the 50% rule. This says that you and me, every party to a situation and a conversation, has an equal stake in both the problems presented and the solutions generated. It says we're all in it together. If you want to speak up for a problem, you need to speak up for a solution. And if you've got a solution, you need to be on board with defining that problem. It's a way to say that we all share in the work of making this work together, and we have an equal stake and equal skin in the game. So all of that together, big set of ground rules, principles, how we apply them, and how much we apply each one of them depending on the circumstance or conversation we're having. All of that is safe space. And now that we've set that up pretty in depth, anytime we run into each other in a grocery store, in a social justice meeting, or in a boardroom, we're going to be able to drop into a level of talking about real shit with real ground rules that'll keep the space really safe. I hope that that tool makes sense to you. If you have questions, if you want to give me feedback, which I incorporate into various iterations of this tool, it's a living document and it really moves forward as we test it in the community. If you have any questions or feedback, go ahead and contact me through my website, sassycooperates.org, and I will talk shop with you as soon as possible. Have a great and safe day.